Welcome everybody to the next episode of KapVista Klips. Today we have Yvonne from Village Energy, and I'm excited to understand a bit about what you're doing and who you are and the team behind it. So welcome. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks, Dan.
Awesome. Let's get into it. So tell me your story. How did you get? What's your background, your experiences, and how did you get to this point?
Sure. So my personal background, if we want to start there. So I started on a pretty standard corporate leadership track, and I only made the decision to jump into co-founding a startup about 5 years ago with my two co-founders. So there's two other people in the business, Ben and Wayne, as co-founders. And before Village Energy, I was the manager of strategy and part of an innovation division at a large utility that was really trying to tackle some of the big energy issues related to optimizing renewable energy like rooftop solar, and how to manage and balance what is a very changing energy grid now. And I think this is where I probably developed my passion for the global energy transition. I actually came into the energy sector along a very, I guess, non-traditional route. So I joined originally as a native title and heritage manager. So I was working with Aboriginal groups and helping to negotiate heritage clearances and native title agreements for major projects across Western Australia. And I actually got employed by the utility that I worked for at the time as their native title and heritage manager. And I think what I got from that was a good background in grassroots level negotiations, which means I really understand how the energy transition more broadly is being experienced at a community level and at a household level, and what's important to customers. And I guess what I get motivated by and what I'm passionate about is really understanding how we can find, I guess, a win-win-win. So how we can find solutions that work for the utility, that work for customers, and also work for the planet as we're adding lots of new energy sources into the grid. So that's my background.
Yep. And then how did the team come together?
So the team, I guess, all the three co-founders that are part of this business have known each other for a very long time. We actually work together in that utility, and we deeply understand the challenges that are being faced by utilities because we've all worked in them for decades. So I mentioned the two other co-founders. We've got Wayne, who's our CEO. So he's got 30 years of experience in high technology growth businesses. He's run startups right the way through to multi-billion-dollar portfolios. He's run P&Ls and teams across Asia, and he's got a real history in delivering rapid growth.
Yep.
And the other co-founder is Ben. So Ben's our CTO, and he's held a lot of major technology and finance roles in utilities previously. So he's been the CFO in multiple Australian utilities, and he's got a really deep understanding of the regulated utility economics and the unique role that technology has to play in a grid that's now decentralising. And what we mean by decentralising is energy resources are no longer just sitting at the centre. It's not just energy coming from big power stations now. We've got energy coming from distributed sources like rooftop solar, batteries, electric vehicles, and they're all things that are increasingly owned by customers and households. So Ben's actually started multiple technology companies before, and he has managed to get those to a successful exit. So he comes with a really great blended background of hardware, software, electrical and finance elements. And then, as I said, at the moment I am the operations COO, and I wear a CXO hat in the organisation. And I told you a bit about my background, so I really come with a bit of experience in consumer engagement and strategy in utilities. So we all have quite different skills, but they're skills that are very complementary. And I think most importantly, we bring a perspective and experience of the role of technology at the edge of the utility grid, which uniquely positions us to design and execute on this opportunity.
Yeah, awesome. So if we move into the company and the solution, give me if I put my customer hat on, how does it work? What
do we actually do? So energy consumers are fast becoming really the dominant force in the energy sector now. I spoke about that decentralisation that's happening. And at a household level, which is where Village Energy operates, customers are now not just consumers of electricity, they also produce electricity and they store electricity. And they're also purchasing a lot of assets now that are actually assets that could be useful to the utility if they could harness them. And we recognise that the utilities need to do this, obviously, and it's something that is also happening across the globe. It's not just happening here in Australia. So stripped back, Village Energy is really just about how we connect the billions of household energy assets to the energy system in a way that works. And we have a broad thesis that all electricity grids across the world are going to experience this. We're moving away from an energy grid that was traditionally underpinned by large centralised fossil fuels, and we're moving to obviously something that looks very different. And by 2040, there's going to be billions of household assets that are distributed across the grid that will have the ability to contribute up to 50% of the electricity to the grid. So that's, I guess, the problem that we're trying to address with utilities. What we actually do is at a household level, customers are pretty apathetic about electricity, about energy. They really just want it to work and they want it to be affordable, and they don't tend to think about energy until there's an issue or they get a bill.
Yep.
But the energy capacity that they now own that sits behind the meter is something that presents a massive opportunity, but also a big challenge for utilities at the moment. And I mentioned the types of energy sources, so the rooftop solar, the batteries, the electric vehicles, but there's also smart appliances or larger loads like air conditioning or pool pumps that could contribute to helping to support the grid. And what we've done at Village Energy is we've developed a technology platform that's really not like any other technology out there at the moment, because we've really thought about how you can start to harness these assets at scale and in a way that's very simple. And what I mean by making it scalable and simple is we basically use a mobile app and a small plug-in device. So it's just a device that plugs into the wall that allows households to accept new energy plans that are presented to them, and they see those in the app. And we help the utilities to put those plans together and present them. So our technology as well is a lot cheaper than competitors. We actually started off working over in India. Mm-hmm. So pre-COVID, we had really strong traction in India. We have a pilot project over there. We've implemented our technology end to end. Because we were focused at that point on the emerging market, we had to make sure that the cost point for the technology was particularly low and obviously met market needs. So now that we've, obviously with COVID, we had to, we had no mobility, so we had to think about how we were going to reposition the business. So we started to focus on Australia, which now is our primary market. And we, back in 2021, managed to secure a project with a large utility here in Western Australia. And that cost point, the affordability or the cheapness of the technology really just does differentiate us from our competitors as well.
Awesome. So you've built the software, you're live. Tell me about the milestones, any wins that you've had.
Yeah, well, we've achieved quite a few milestones across, we've been around now for about 5 years. I mentioned that we started over in the emerging markets. We actually secured our seed backing when we first started from a venture fund called Breakthrough Energy Ventures, which is a US fund. They're a Bill Gates chaired fund, and they only invest in technologies that will have the largest impact on reducing climate change. And Village Energy was their first investment outside of North America. We obviously had to build the technology from scratch and implement it, and we secured that first pilot in India within our first year of operation. So that was it was a real testament to the fact that what we're developing is something that utilities need. We obviously then implemented that technology end to end. We were able to demonstrate some really amazing results when we implemented the technology. So we've been able to show that we can increase the amount of renewable energy on the grid by 50%. We can lower household bills by up to 9%. In India, in the emerging market, we improved reliability by 75%. And we do other really important things in the developed market context. Some of the problems that utilities have tend to be around peak. So obviously everyone's kind of aware that towards the end of the day, there's a peak period where a lot of people are using energy. We can implement our technology and encourage customers and automate shifting of some of their load, so we can reduce the peak. And in India, we demonstrated we could reduce that by 13%, which is fairly significant, and overall reduce the operating cost of the utility by 30%. So there's some really pretty amazing results that we've been able to show in our previous pilots. And obviously we had to survive through COVID. So I think any startup that managed to do that can count that as a milestone achievement. But we had to pivot the technology at that point. We're using the same technology, but we're basically just applying it to different use cases. So as a simple example, here in Australia, there are probably two big problems that utilities face. The first one is in the middle of the day at the moment, because of the amount of rooftop solar that's sitting across the grid, there's way too much renewable energy flowing into the grid, and that causes a lot of technical and economic problems for the utilities. So, there's a lot of rooftop solar, renewable energy that's not really being used optimally at the moment. So we can apply our technology to do simple things like make sure pool pumps are running in the middle of the day, or adjust air conditioning temperature slightly in the middle of the day. And if there's a critical grid event, because sometimes when there's too much solar, it can actually lead to outages. We can actually curtail the export, so we can stop that flow of solar going into the grid using our technology. And we allow the utilities to do that en masse. So we allow them to orchestrate thousands or hundreds of thousands of those assets that sit in customers' households. And the other use case that's really common was the peak that I talk about. So how do we start to reduce that peak? Because at the moment, utilities have to make sure there's enough energy to cater to that peak, which economically obviously isn't ideal. And how do we start to think about shifting some of the renewable energy? So we've got batteries that could store it in the middle of the day and then use it in that peak period. So we apply the automation, and we are turning assets on and off or up and down to help alleviate that peak and optimize renewables. I went off track a bit with the milestones there, but since we've repositioned our technology to tackle those very specific developed market use cases, we've secured a number of contracts here in Australia. We've got a large one here in Western Australia, and there are a number over in the eastern states as well that are also contracting with us now to start to do proof of concepts of how the technology could work and could be rolled out to their customers. And we've also been recognised on the world stage. So we've won a few awards over the years. We were named top 15 clean energy startup addressing issues of climate change. We're also a Clean Tech APAC 25 company. So we've been recognised as having an innovation that's most likely to make a significant impact over a 5 to 10 year period. And we also won the Australian Technologies competition in the energy category. So yeah, we've got some really good milestones.
Okay, awesome. And then let's get to the interesting part. Tell us about the raise. How much are you raising?
So the raise, we're raising 4 million Aussie at the moment. We currently have 2 million of that locked in with a great Australian lead investor. And we want to raise that 4 million because we feel like at the moment there's a real tipping point for us. We're feeling like we're moving away from startup to scale up. We've got a lot of pipeline, a lot of traction. So the funds that we're raising at the moment would really be used to deploy to around 10,000 customers with existing utility customers. So what I mean by 10,000 customers obviously is those households. So get our platform and our technology into 10,000 households across Australia. Also, we want to double down on investing on our R&D differentiators.
Yep.
We've obviously got some roles that we'll need to recruit for if we're starting to scale, so expanding our core team. And we want to ensure that we're getting our devices really market ready to accelerate the business forward, and start to expand some of those relationships and do business development with customers.
Yeah, and you're already on a global scale, aren't you? You have.
Yeah, so we've currently got, I guess from a customer perspective at the moment, we've got a strong pipeline. So I've spoken about the utilities here in Australia, but we still have a lot of traction in India. So there's a couple of contracts that we've got over there. We're also working in Vietnam and Indonesia and Cambodia. So there are quite a few opportunities that we're currently working on across Asia.
Yeah, that's exciting. And there's a massive opportunity in Asia. Over the last few weeks, I've been speaking to a number of Australian startups focusing on the Southeast Asian market, and there's a massive opportunity. So you're in a prime position to scale quickly in this part of the world. And then
definitely. And I guess one of the primary reasons for us starting in India was just because of the sheer scale of the market. So, one utility over there represents millions of customers. So, we're still very, I guess, our primary market at the moment is Australia, but we've still got to focus on Asia more broadly as well.
Yeah. Okay, that's exciting. So you're a SaaS platform, revenue generating, have 50% of your raise already locked in with a keystone investor, and you're ready to hit the switch and scale. So from an investment point of view, it is quite attractive for investors to look at. And then beyond Asia Pacific, what does that look like for the rest of the world?
Yeah, well, we are actually planning on beginning to explore the US market this year. We know that our technology has global application, so we are keen to expand more broadly than just Asia. So that's definitely in the pipelines for this year, is to start to build relationships over in the US. And I think that's probably where our initial seed investor, Breakthrough Energy Ventures, will be quite helpful in just brokering some of those relationships and connections as we expand into that market.
Perfect. That's exciting. We'll leave it there. That gives us a really good overview of what you're doing, and it gives us an understanding of you, your team, and why you're the right people to take this to the next level. Given your background, your experience, and the partners that you have involved. So thank you very much for jumping on. Anybody who's watching this video who wants to know more about Village Energy, please let me know and I can make a direct introduction to the team. But thank you very much. It's been great to chat to you.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Bye.